What if Iron Thorns was in Gen 1 OU? Good to be back, everyone. And I'm sure this is not the Pokemon you guys would have expected me to come back with. I usually like to start with something pretty big and grand. But the other day, someone suggested this. And I don't know, I just found it interesting. I've already gone over Tyranitar. And to no one's surprise, Tyranitar is pretty good. But how would Iron Thorns do? You don't have a really valuable psychic immunity. At the same time, Electric Stab is pretty good. And despite Rock Slide not having the flinch chance, it's debatably, I would say Rock is maybe at its best in Gen 1. Though I can definitely see an argument for Gen 3. But either way, it's a pretty good type combination. Sorta. You do have some really nice resistances, but you do have a quad weakness to Earthquake, which is pretty bad, all things considered. How do we make up for this? Well, like I said, you have electric resistances, so you resist electric and flying. So you resist both of Zapdos' stab, which is really good. Being a rock type also means you resist normal stab. And yes, pretty much all of the heavy hitter normal types like Tauros and Snorlax use Earthquake. But that's still a very useful ability to have, as it gives you the ability to pivot. And along with that, Iron Thorn's stats are absolutely insane for Gen 1. The lowest stat it has is 70. Tauros has a special of 70. But a big difference between Tauros and Iron Thorns is that Iron Thorns has Stab Thunderbolt, while Tauros does not. Tauros uses Thunderbolt sometimes as coverage against Cloyster. That is a 3-hit KO. With Stab, you 2-hit KO Cloyster. And what do you know? You have, as far as I'm concerned, the perfect speed stat for Gen 1. Because with base 72 speed, you are 2 points faster than Cloyster, meaning you always outspeed Cloyster and get 2-hit KO it with Thunderbolt. So despite you being a rock type, Cloyster does kind of fear you. Obviously with Clamp Luck, it can kill you, which is something we'll go over later. But it's definitely more so in Iron Thorns' favor. And just like regular Tauros, you have Blizzard, which is just amazing coverage, and helps you a little bit against the Earthquake users. And by that, I mean it helps you to hit right on. So it's something, like at least you can kind of defend yourself. And even for like Tauros, you have Thunder Wave. So for regular, like Rhydon, the main rock type you're using in Gen 1, you don't use Hyper Beam. And technically Iron Thorns has it as well, but it's not really that good. So for an extra slot, you usually go for Body Slam, since if something's going to pivot out, you can at least go for a chance to fish for paralysis. Iron Thorns does not need to do this. It can go straight for paralysis itself, which is huge. I'm just going to give you a spoiler right now. Without a crit, Tauros cannot OHKO Iron Thorns with Earthquake. And a paralyzed Tauros is kind of boned. And speaking of like surviving Earthquakes, that's like one of the good things about Gen 1. You have max like DVs and IVs, so you're always using max special, or not special, or technically yeah, but you're using max HP and max defense. So normally things that would just always kill you in certain gens, or dare I say even most gens, you can survive here. And luckily, you have a really good base 100 HP and 110 defense. So even if everything wasn't maxed out, you were taking physical moves incredibly well. Add that with a really good 134 attack, and this guy's just a really great mix attacker. The best physical move you have is Earthquake, and you're probably wondering why? Why go for Earthquake instead of Rock Slide? Well, with Stab, both are actually doing equal damage. And because of that, it's just a matter of what advantages does one have over the other. Obviously, flying is immune to Earthquake. And there's also Executor, which can resist it. And Rock Slide could be super effective against Ice types, such as Jinx, or technically Cloyster and Lapras. Meanwhile, Earthquake is strong against Gengar, it's strong against Jolteon. But one of the big things that Earthquake has is the fact that it's way more accurate. Earthquake is 100%, while Rock Slide is 90%, which... if both of them are hitting the exact same, why would you go for Rock Slide over Earthquake? Not to mention that a lot of things that Earthquake is strong against, such as Gengar, Iron Thorns doesn't have ways to take it on normally, because Gengar doesn't care too much about your Thunderbolts or your Blizzards. But meanwhile, on the other hand, what's weak against Rock Slide? Zapdos, Jinx, and like I said before, the Ice Water types, but you don't really want to use Rock Slide on those anyways. But Zapdos is weak to Blizzard, and Jinx is weak physically, and you have Thunder Wave. So Iron Thorns can take care of those rock-weak Pokemon in other ways, which you can't really say for Gengar. So Earthquake is just definitively the best move you have. So that means your main stab move is Thunderbolt, which is more than enough. That already gives you good coverage against other things as well, such as Starmie and Swellow. And just in general, like, obviously Bolt Beam is really good. It's actually kind of insane that I think about it, that Tauros is as good as it is, but you can never use a series set. Or I guess you could use a set with Bolt Beam now that I think about it. But I do find it kind of interesting that it's not even like the de facto, but it makes a lot of sense for Tauros' case. A lot of other moves you can use would be Body Slam and Hyper Beam, but these are just inferior to other things you could be doing. You already hit really hard, and Hyper Beam isn't really worth it, I would say. With Thunder Wave, Body Slam is just useless. The extra damage isn't really worth it, because you just have other ways of just dealing with the stuff. Fire Blast could be a good tech option, but Paralysis is from Thunder Wave. That's already good enough to where Tauros is kind of hesitant to fight you. So the only thing you're really gonna hope to burn is Rhydon. But if you're burning Rhydon, that just means you're getting 2 KO'd. And at that point, you're better off just going for Blizzard and hoping for a crit. And with a 72 base speed stat, you have a pretty decent chance for a crit. Not to mention you can always just revenge Rhydon when it's already pretty low. Or you can get a situation where you can call Rhydon switching in. And even Earthquake in the Blizzard can do a lot of damage to Rhydon. But it's still the best tech option here. But there is one that is definitely better than the rest. Well Kick, Substitute, Rest, those are all good. You can definitely use those and have some success. But Swords Dance. If you're using Swords Dance, you are probably adding Rock Slide. So you're just having a... I forget what the combination it's called. A Quake Slide or something like that. And it sounds pretty good. And with electric coverage from Stab Thunderbolt, you could also take care of those physical walls, such as Cloyster and Swellow. But I just don't think it's worth it. You're going to see pretty quickly that, just like with regular Tyranitar, Iron Thorns really struggles defensively, despite its really bulky base stats. So it's going to have a hard time getting a free Swords Dance off. And if that's the case, I think you're better off just using a mixed attacking set. Because with that set here, there's not a single thing that isn't going to take decent damage from at least one of your moves. And if you really wanted to, you could get rid of Thunder Wave for Rock Slide, and then you really just have like perfect coverage. And this is more effective, I would say, than getting a big attack boost with Swords Dance. You could definitely make some sets with it, and with it on its own could be a win con. A very interesting one. I don't think Iron Thorns is the best Swords Dance user. Like, I think it probably stays in OU, but I do feel like if you want Swords Dance, you're better off with Kingler or Sandslash or any of those sorts. It's a lot like Pokemon in lower tiers, such as Poliwrath never using Amnesia in lower tiers, or I'm pretty sure Kingler also doesn't use Swords Dance in lower tiers, or could be thinking of Sandslash or Pinsir. Either way, not the Pokemon you would have expected me to start out with after a long break, but I definitely think it's interesting. So let's just get on to the replay, shall we? Now starting off with the boy himself, we got Tauros. Earthquake is not an OHKO without a crit, so even though this is a bad matchup, no way around that, Tauros is never gonna want to fight a healthy Iron Thorns, because the risk of paralysis is just really bad. But still, it doesn't make the matchup great for Iron Thorns. Snorlax, on the other hand, if it's a physical set with no Earthquake, obviously you Stomp, but with Iron Thorns in the format, why wouldn't it always use Earthquake? It's gonna have it if it's a physical set, and Iron Thorns just can't do that much. Snorlax is just way too tanky. But what about Amnesialax? Well, Amnesialax, you technically do better, and I guess with Earthquake you're doing decent damage, forcing Snorlax to go for rest. But once again, Snorlax is incredibly tanky, and maybe getting lucky with paralysis or a crit could help, but it takes a while to take up Snorlax, so Snorlax can get up all those amnesias. Also, we're not even going over Reflectalax. If it's Reflectalax, you just straight up lose. Which, no one wants that. At least you can survive at least one Ice Beam. But again, you still need to be lucky. So I'm just gonna call this a bad matchup, because it feels like, regardless of the set, Snorlax can take care of it. Now, Chansey. They go with Paralyze each other, so technically you could just call this it could go the way for both sides, since that's just how Paralysis works. But Earthquake is a 3-hit KO. That's honestly not that bad when you have Paralysis. It's not too much to ask for, like, fishing for a crit. And Chansey probably does only need either one crit or just a turn full Paralysis, and you can probably beat a 1v1. Ice Beam and Seismic Toss don't really do that much, but Chansey does have reliable recovery. Not to mention, this is a set without Reflect. If it's Reflect Chansey, you straight up lose, and there's not much you can do about it. But I do not know how common Reflect Chansey would be, because even though Iron Thorns is pretty good, as you can already tell just from the Snorlax, Tauros, and even the Chansey replay here, it's still going to struggle. So it's not like one of those big threats you need to like build around, which I'm going to say is actually to Iron Thorns' advantage. If it was super good, then a lot of people would start preparing for it, and it really hates Reflect so much. Next up is Alakazam. These guys can paralyze each other, and both can hit each other decently hard. Obviously, crits and special drops are absolutely terrifying, and with paralysis can make sometimes you fight Alakazam just unwinnable. And to my surprise, it doesn't look like Earthquake is a 2-hit KO, but it could be a damage range. But the fact that it isn't a consistent 2-hit KO, I still think is pretty shocking. But just because Alakazam got really good luck here doesn't mean that it's a bad matchup. Both are super threatening towards the other, and both can kill. Technically, Iron Thorns, I guess, has less RNG behind it, but it doesn't matter. Now, normally Iron Thorns can do pretty good against Cloyster. The only way Cloyster wins is for this replay in particular, where it goes for Clamp and hits 5 times in a row. But any chip and Cloyster's dead. If it doesn't get 5 clamps or a crit, it dies. And if it misses clamp, it dies. This is still a could go either way, but definitely one where I would say it's in Iron Thorn's favor. I don't think Cloyster wants to risk it. Now, Exeggutor here kind of surprised me. Wizard only does about a third, which it does, like Psychic does about the same amount of damage. Mega Drain does about as much as Psychic, so there's no reason to use it as a tech option. So who has the better advantage here? Because obviously Iron Thorns is faster and has the better crit rate. And while I don't use it for these replays, obviously Exeggutor has Sleep Powder, but also special drops with Psychic. So I feel like maybe Exeggutor has the better chance here. But then again, there is the freeze chance with Blizzard. And you can always just go for Thunder Wave, which obviously that will just give you chances where you can get some free hits in. So, I was leaning towards Executor when I made the replays, but now that I'm looking at it again, it's just could go either way. Both sides have RNG that can help them win. Not so much for Gengar. Even if you hit Hypnosis, Gengar is not hitting you super hard with Nightshade, Explosion, or Psychic. And obviously, Iron Thorns resist Thunderbolt. So Gengar just gets completely walled by Iron Thorns, and Iron Thorns can take it on very easily. So that's nice. We don't have too many great matchups yet for Iron Thorns, but they definitely exist. So there's Jolteon here. Sure, you have double kick coverage, but with base 100 HP and 110 defense, Jolteon is not doing much, even with a crit, as you see there. That was like, what, a fourth? Or like maybe a little bit more than a fourth? Or, it doesn't matter. Jolteon's just not cooking against Iron Thorns. Now Jinx, with Rock Slide you obviously win this way harder, but just from the way an Earthquake alone is already good enough. Earthquake is a 2 KO. Jinx isn't really hurting you with Blizzard or Psychic. And Paralysis, Jinx just becomes terrified of because of how hard Iron Thorns hit. And obviously a crit just kills Jinx entirely. So a good matchup. Maybe even a great matchup, I'm not exactly sure. Now unless you get a crit or a freeze, Rhydon probably is killing you. But at the same time, you were never going to face a full HP Rhydon anyways. So even though it's a guaranteed KO, I'm going to call this a bad matchup instead of a unwinnable one. Which, it's better than I would have expected. Now Slowbro, you hit really hard, but unfortunately not hard enough. Amnesia can allow Slowbro to survive one attack, and then they OHKO you with Surf. But at the same time, at that range, anything can kill Slowbro. So definitely I could go either way. And with Iron Thorns' better crit chance, and with the chance of Paralysis, which is Thunderbolt, without even using Thunder Wave, it's a little bit more in Iron Thorns' favor. And even if it isn't, it just leaves Slowbro the getting revenge killed. Now Starmie would be a big threat with Thunderbolt, but obviously most sets are using Psychic, I meant Surf, but you get what I'm saying. Surf can hit really hard on Iron Thorns, but normally you're using Blizzard instead. I don't know how common Surf Starmie would be. Obviously it's not like it's bad. It's still stab, it has more power points than anything else. But I'm not sure if Iron Thorns is a big enough threat to where Starmie is going to consider using Surf way more often. You'll have to see, since eventually I would like to do a Generation Jumble with all the Paradox Pokemon. By the way, you should definitely join my Discord server. I host tournaments based on the what-if scenarios that I do, and they're always a lot of fun. I think you'd enjoy that. And also, recently had a Patreon, but it's whatever. We only have 2 more replays left, and we'll just go over those instead. Alright, Victory Bell. I don't say this a lot, but Victory Bell has it pretty good right here. Its special is high enough to where it can survive 2 Blizzards from Iron Thorns, and 2 hits from Razor Leaf is a guaranteed KO. So you're almost dead, Victory Bell. But this also isn't even going over Wrap, which Wrap isn't really too good against a Rock type, but it's definitely something you use in your control. And Sleep Powder and all that stuff. Overall, Victory Bell has it. It's doing alright. And it's still at red HP, so that's something. I just cannot give Victory Bell a break, now can I? Last but not least, we have Zapdos. You might not be immune to electric moves, so Paralysis is annoying. But also, you wall Zapdos no matter what. Blizzard is already pretty good damage against Zapdos. Even a crit is only doing like a third. So you just resist Thunderbolt and you quad resist Drill Peck. So Zapdos can't really touch you. Also, I guess it's not a guaranteed 3 KO. But still, Zapdos is not staying in the first place. So, yeah, as you can probably tell from the fact that Iron Thorns is currently paralyzed and a half HP, this guy is definitely not a Rhydon replacement. He's still a pretty good Rock type, whose main option is its wide move pool and being a really good mix attacker, but it was never going to be just the best Rock type in the format. Well, here's the tier list, and I think it's alright. Like, there's a lot of things in bad matchup, but half of them, Iron Thorns has just good coverage against, and with Thunder Wave, Tauros is just kind of wary. So I think it's not that bad. I think it's enough to stay in OU. Better than Victreebel and Swellow, I would say. Probably better than Jolteon as well. But that's about the best I'll give it. What do you think? Do you think Iron Thorns is better than I said? Is there any other coverage you think would help it? Or do you think it would just be kind of mid and end up in underuse? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.